The next morning brought renewed purpose. Alessandro was up early, his lawyer's call having triggered something in him. Not reckless anger but cold, calculated determination. Emma found him at her kitchen table surrounded by papers, his laptop open, a fresh pot of coffee already made. "You've been busy," she observed, pouring herself a cup. "Marco thinks I'm beaten." "That's his mistake." Alessandro looked up, and Emma saw the intelligence that had made him successful in his world, the ability to think several moves ahead, to see patterns others missed. He's consolidating power quickly, which means he's making mistakes too. Getting sloppy. Emma sat across from him. "What kind of mistakes?" "Financial ones. When my father ran things, money moved through careful, established channels. Laundered slowly, invested cautiously. Marco's moving too much money too fast, trying to show strength to the family by making big deals, importing larger shipments, expanding territories." Alessandro pulled up spreadsheets on his laptop. "My lawyer sent these account movements from the family businesses. See these patterns." Emma looked at the numbers, trying to make sense of the columns and figures. "What am I looking at?" "Marco's greed. He's diverting money from legitimate businesses to fund illegal operations, but he's not covering his tracks properly. These transactions could be traced, especially by someone who knows what to look for." Alessandro's smile was cold. "Someone like a federal prosecutor with the right information." "You want to turn him in to the FBI?" "I want to give them enough evidence to arrest him and dismantle his operations without destroying the legitimate businesses or hurting family members who aren't involved in the criminal side." Alessandro leaned back, running a hand through his hair. "It's a narrow path. Too little evidence and Marco walks free. Too much and I take down innocent people with him." Emma understood the dilemma. "So you need detailed financial records showing exactly which operations are illegal, which family members are involved, and which businesses are clean." "Exactly. And I need testimony from people willing to testify about Marco's direct orders for violence." Alessandro's expression darkened. Antonio De Luca would have been perfect for that. He knew everything, was willing to help. Now he's dead. Are there others? Maybe. There's a man named Vincent Caruso. He's been my father's accountant before Antonio. Knows where all the bodies are buried, literally and figuratively. But he's loyal to the family, not to me personally. Getting him to flip would be... Alessandro trailed off, thinking. Difficult but not impossible. Emma suggested. Dangerous, Alessandro corrected. For him and for us. But he might be our only option. They spent the morning strategizing. Alessandro made careful calls using his burner phone, reaching out to old contacts, testing loyalties, gathering information. Emma, meanwhile, did what she did best, organized chaos into coherent structure. She created spreadsheets tracking Marco's operations, timelines of illegal activities, and lists of potential witnesses. You're good at this, Alessandro observed during a lunch break, watching her color code documents by priority level. Years of editing mystery novels pays off in unexpected ways, Emma said with a slight smile. Plot holes in Marco's operation are basically the same as plot holes in manuscripts. You just need to find them and exploit them. Remind me to hire you as my strategic consultant if we survive this. When we survive this, Emma corrected firmly. No ifs allowed. Alessandro's expression softened. He came around the table and pulled her to her feet, wrapping his arms around her waist. When did you become such an optimist? When I fell in love with a stubborn Italian who refuses to give up even when the odds are impossible. She kissed him softly. Your determination is contagious. Is that what we're calling it? But he was smiling, the hard lines of stress easing from around his eyes. They stood like that for a moment, swaying slightly to music only they could hear, finding peace in the eye of the storm they were building toward. The call from Rosa came that afternoon, on Emma's phone, since Rosa's new number wasn't in any of Alessandro's contacts. "It's me." Rosa's voice was tight with barely controlled panic. "Is Alessandro with you?" Emma put the phone on speaker. "I'm here, Rosa," Alessandro said immediately. "What's wrong?" "Uncle Marco came to my apartment today. In person." Rosa's voice shook. "He wanted to talk," he said. "Wanted to explain why what he was doing was necessary for the family's future." Alessandro's face went white. "Did he hurt you?" "No. But he—" Rosa took a shaky breath. "He knows, Alessandro. He knows you're alive. He said he has people looking everywhere, that it's only a matter of time before they find you. And he wanted me to give you a message." "What message?" "That if you turn yourself in, he'll let you live. You'll have to leave the country, never come back, and he'll freeze all your assets, but you'll be alive. And he'll leave me alone, stop watching me." Rosa's voice cracked. "But if you don't surrender within 1 week, he's going to start killing people I care about. My roommate, my friends from school, my attending physician. He gave me a list, Alessandro. 20 names of people who die because of me if you don't give up." The silence that followed was terrible. Emma watched Alessandro's face cycle through emotions, rage, horror, and finally, guilty resignation. "Don't," Emma said sharply, recognizing that look. "Don't even think about it. Emma, he's threatening Rosa's friends. Innocent people who have nothing to do with any of this. I know. And it's despicable and evil, which is exactly why you can't give in. If you surrender, Marco wins everything. He'll probably kill you anyway despite his promises, and then he'll have total control with no one left to challenge him." "But if I don't?" "If you don't, we move up our timeline," Emma interrupted. "We get the evidence we need and we take him down before that week is up. We go on offense instead of defense." 7 days isn't enough time," Alessandro said. "Then we make it enough time." Emma looked at Rosa's name on the phone screen. "Rosa, can you help us?" There was a pause, then. "How?" "You have access to places Alessandro doesn't, social situations, university events, areas where you seem harmless." Emma's mind raced, pieces clicking together. "Marco's son, Paolo, he's close to your age, right? You grew up together." "We did. He had a crush on me when we were teenagers." Rosa's voice showed she understood where Emma was going. "You want me to get close to him. I want you to exploit that old connection," Emma said carefully. "Not romantically if you're not comfortable, but friendly. See if Paolo lets anything slip about Marco's operations. Young guys like to impress pretty girls, especially ones they used to have feelings for." "That's incredibly dangerous," Alessandro protested. "If Paolo suspects—" "Paolo's not the smart one in that family," Rosa interrupted. "Marco is. But Paolo loves to brag, especially when he's been drinking. There's a fundraiser at the hospital next week, one of those black tie charity things. Paolo always comes because he likes pretending to be a philanthropist. I could make sure I'm seated near him, engage him in conversation." "Rosa, no. Alessandro, I'm not a child anymore. And I'm not helpless." Rosa's voice was strong despite the tremor underneath. "Those people on Marco's list? They're my friends. My colleagues. People I care about. I'm not letting them die because I was too scared to help." Emma squeezed Alessandro's hand, seeing the war in his eyes between protective instinct and practical necessity. "Rosa's right. And she'll be in a public place, surrounded by people. It's as safe as anything can be right now." Alessandro closed his eyes, his jaw working. Finally. "Okay. But you wear a wire. Something small, undetectable. And you have a panic button on you at all times. At the first sign of danger, you get out. Agreed, Rosa said immediately. What do you need me to try to get from Paolo? Alessandro's expression shifted into operational mode. Details about the new shipping operations Marco's running. He's moving product through the harbor, but I don't know which pier, which dock workers are on his payroll, or when the next shipment arrives. If Paolo knows any of that, it could give us what we need. I can do that, Rosa said, and despite the fear, Emma heard determination too. When do we start? They spent the next hour planning, Alessandro giving Rosa specific questions to work into conversation naturally, Emma taking notes and creating contingency plans. By the time they hung up, Rosa sounded more confident, more like a co-conspirator than a victim. She's brave, Emma said after the call ended. Just like her brother. Alessandro pulled Emma into his arms, holding her tight enough that she could feel his heart racing. If anything happens to her because of this, nothing will happen to her. We won't let it. Emma pulled back enough to look at him. 7 days. Alessandro. We have 7 days to gather evidence and take down Marco. That's plenty of time. You're lying, he said, but there was affection in it. You're terrible at hiding when you're scared. Then I guess we're both lying to each other, Emma replied, standing on her toes to kiss him. Because I can see you're terrified too. But we're going to do this anyway, because the alternative is unthinkable. I love you, Alessandro said against her lips. Even if we've only known each other 2 weeks, even if it's too fast and too complicated, I love you more than I've ever loved anyone. 2 weeks, Emma marveled. It feels like longer. Like I've known you forever. Maybe we were supposed to find each other. Maybe that storm was fate bringing us together. You don't seem like a man who believes in fate. I didn't used to, Alessandro admitted. But how else do you explain this? Finding exactly the right person in exactly the right moment when I needed someone most. Emma had no answer for that except to kiss him again, pouring all her feelings into it. The love and fear and desperate hope that they would survive this, that they would get their chance at a real future together. That night, they made love for the first time. Not rushed or desperate, but slow and gentle, learning each other's bodies with careful attention and tender reverence. Alessandro was patient despite the obvious desire in his eyes, constantly checking that Emma was comfortable, that this was what she wanted. I'm sure, she whispered, pulling him closer. I want this. I want you. Afterward, they lay tangled together in Emma's bed, the moonlight painting silver patterns across their skin. Alessandro traced lazy designs on her back while Emma listened to his heartbeat gradually slow. Tell me about the life you want, Emma said quietly. When this is all over, when Marco's in prison and you're free, what do you see for yourself? Alessandro was quiet for a long moment, his hand stilling on her back. I've never let myself think about it. Seemed pointless to dream about something I could never have. You can have it now. So tell me. I'd want something simple, he said finally. A legitimate business, maybe restaurants or real estate development. Something that builds rather than destroys. A house somewhere quiet, maybe on the coast like this. Room for Rosa to visit, for future nieces and nephews to play. And, Emma prompted, hearing the hesitation in his voice. And someone to share it with. Someone who sees me as just Alessandro, not the Russo heir or the former Don or any of that. Someone who makes me laugh and challenges my thinking and isn't afraid to call me out when I'm being an idiot. His arms tightened around her. Someone exactly like you, if such a person existed. Emma's eyes filled with tears. She exists, she whispered. And she wants all of that too. The simple life, the legitimate business, the house by the coast. With you. Even knowing where I've been. What I've done. I know who you are now. Who you're trying to become. That's what matters to me. Alessandro rolled them over so he could look down at her face, his expression so intense it stole her breath. When this is over, I'm going to marry you, Emma Clarke. I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret taking a chance on a bleeding stranger in a storm. That's quite a promise from a man who's still technically on the run from his murderous uncle. Then I better make sure I survive long enough to keep it, Alessandro said, and kissed her until they were both breathless and reaching for each other again. Later, as dawn began to lighten the sky, Emma lay awake watching Alessandro sleep. She thought about how 2 weeks could change a life completely, how a single decision, to open a door during a storm, could alter the entire course of your future. She should be terrified. They were planning to take down a mafia boss, risking everything, facing danger that could kill them both. Instead, she felt alive, purposeful. Like every moment of her life had been leading to this, to Alessandro, to this fight, to finally being brave enough to choose a dangerous happiness over safe loneliness. I love you, she whispered to his sleeping form. And we're going to win this. I don't know how yet, but we will. As if he'd heard her, Alessandro's arms tightened around her in sleep, pulling her closer. Emma settled against him, closing her eyes, and for the first time in years, she dreamed of a future she actually wanted. A future with Alessandro. If they could just survive long enough to claim it. The charity gala at Massachusetts General Hospital was scheduled for Friday night, day 5 of their 7-day deadline. Emma and Alessandro spent the intervening days in intense preparation, transforming Emma's cottage into a makeshift war room. Alessandro contacted Vincent Caruso, the former family accountant, through a series of intermediaries. The old man was cautious. Years of working for organized crime had made him paranoid, but Alessandro's persistence paid off. Vincent agreed to a meeting, neutral territory, and if Alessandro could guarantee his safety, he might be willing to provide the financial records they needed. He wants $2 million and a new identity, Alessandro told Emma after the final negotiation call. And protection for his daughter and her family. Can you give him that? I can access emergency funds my father set aside. Money Marco doesn't know about. The identity and protection. Alessandro rubbed his face, exhausted. I'll have to work with the FBI for that. Which means revealing myself to them before we're ready. Emma looked up from her laptop where she'd been researching witness protection protocols. Not necessarily. Your lawyer could approach them as an intermediary. Offer a deal. You'll provide evidence and testimony against Marco in exchange for immunity and protection for your witnesses. They'll want to arrest me too. I've been part of the organization, even if I was trying to reform it. Then make yourself too valuable to arrest, Emma said pragmatically. You know things about the Russo family operations that no one else does. You can give them not just Marco, but connections to other families, to corrupt officials, to money laundering operations throughout New England. Make it clear that arresting you means losing all of that. Alessandro stared at her. You're good at this. I read a lot of crime novels, Emma said dryly. Apparently they're educational. They spent Wednesday preparing Rosa. Alessandro drove to Boston in a rental car, not wanting to risk Emma's vehicle being spotted, and met his sister at a safe location. He fitted her with a nearly invisible wire, showed her how to activate the panic button hidden as a pendant on her necklace, and went over the questions she should ask Paolo one more time. You don't have to do this, Alessandro told her. Even now, we can find another way. Rosa hugged her brother fiercely. Those people on Marco's list? One of them is my roommate Sarah. We've lived together for 3 years. She's like a sister to me. Rosa pulled back, her eyes wet but determined. I'm doing this for her, for all of them. And I'm doing it for you, because you deserve to be free of this family curse. When Alessandro returned to Emma's cottage that evening, he was quiet, the weight of what they were asking Rosa to do heavy on his shoulders. Emma held him that night, offering comfort without words, understanding that sometimes the hardest part of love was letting people you care about take necessary risks. Thursday brought unexpected news. Vincent Caruso called Alessandro's lawyer with additional information. Marco was planning something big. A shipment coming in Friday night, the same night as the hospital gala. If they could document it, catch it on camera with visible connections to Marco, it might be enough to move against him even without Vincent's testimony. It's too convenient, Alessandro said, pacing Emma's living room. Marco's careful. He wouldn't plan a major shipment the same night he's appearing at a public event. Unless he thinks no one's watching, Emma suggested. You're supposedly dead, remember? His enemies are eliminated. He probably feels invulnerable right now. Arrogance, Alessandro muttered. My father always said it was Marco's weakness. Gets cocky when he thinks he's winning. So we use that against him, Emma said. Rosa works Paolo at the gala, we surveil the shipment, and we gather evidence on multiple fronts. By Saturday morning, we go to the FBI with everything. We. Emma met his gaze steadily. Yes, we. I'm not letting you do this alone. Emma, if this goes wrong. If this goes wrong, I want to be with you. Not sitting here safe while you face danger alone. She crossed to him, taking his hands. We're partners now, Alessandro. For better or worse. He pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. I don't deserve you. Stop saying that. You deserve happiness. You deserve a future. And I'm going to make sure you get both. Friday arrived too quickly. Rosa texted confirmation that she was attending the gala, that Paolo had responded enthusiastically to her friendly overtures at previous hospital functions, that she was ready. Alessandro and Emma prepared carefully. They rented a nondescript sedan, obtained a high-quality camera with a telephoto lens, and dressed in dark, practical clothing. Alessandro insisted Emma wear a bulletproof vest under her jacket. Overkill, she protested. Necessary precaution, he countered, his tone brooking no argument. Please, Emma. For my peace of mind. She relented, touched by his concern even as the weight of the vest reminded her of the danger they were walking into. The harbor was dark and cold when they arrived, finding a vantage point on a service road that gave them clear sight of Pier 7, the location Vincent had provided. They settled in to wait, the camera ready, Emma's nerves stretched tight. Tell me something, Emma said quietly, needing distraction. When you were a kid before all of this, what did you want to be? Alessandro was quiet for a moment, watching the pier through the telephoto lens. A teacher, actually. History, specifically. I loved stories about the past, about how civilizations rose and fell, about the people who changed the world. That's beautiful. My father laughed when I told him. Said teaching was for people too weak to do real work. Alessandro's voice was bitter with old pain. He made it very clear what I was allowed to want. It's not too late, Emma said. You could go to university, get your degree, teach. I'm 32 with a criminal record. You're 32 with life experience and a chance to start over. Emma took his free hand, squeezing gently. When this is over, you should do it. Study history, teach, share that passion with students who need inspiring. Alessandro lowered the camera to look at her, his expression soft despite the tension of their stakeout. You really believe I can have that kind of life? I know you can. You just have to believe it too. Before Alessandro could respond, his phone buzzed. A text from Rosa. Paolo is drunk and talking. Getting good intel. We'll send recording when I can. She's doing it, Emma breathed. She's actually pulling it off. At the pier, activity began. Trucks arrived, Lights carefully dimmed. Men emerged, moving with purposeful efficiency. Alessandro raised the camera, capturing faces, license plates, every detail. "That's Dominic Falcone," he murmured, zooming in on one man. "Marco's right hand. And there's Leo Santos. He runs the dockworker union for Marco." Click, click, click. This is good. This is exactly what we need. A black town car pulled up, and Emma's breath caught as Marco Russo himself emerged. Older than Alessandro, heavier, with a cruel twist to his mouth even in profile. He surveyed the operation like a king inspecting his kingdom. "Got him," Alessandro whispered, the camera clicking rapidly. Marco directing illegal shipment operations. Direct connection. This is it, Emma. This is what we need. The transfer took 20 minutes. Crates moved from ship to truck, money exchanged hands, Marco personally overseeing everything. Alessandro documented it all, his hands steady despite the stakes. Then everything went wrong. One of Marco's men pointed toward their location. Shouts in Italian. Men running. Alessandro grabbed Emma's hand. "Run." They sprinted back to their car, gravel crunching under their feet, shouts growing closer. Alessandro threw the camera at Emma as they ran. "Get it safe. Whatever happens, protect that evidence." They reached the car, Alessandro fumbling with the keys. Footsteps pounding behind them. He got the door open, shoved Emma inside, then threw himself into the driver's seat. Gunshots. Emma screamed as the back window shattered. Alessandro floored the accelerator, the car fishtailing before finding traction. More shots, one hitting the trunk with a metallic thunk. Alessandro drove like a madman, weaving through side streets, taking random turns, constantly checking the rearview mirror. Emma clutched the camera to her chest, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. "Are we clear?" she managed after 10 minutes of silence. "I think so." Alessandro's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. "Emma, I'm so sorry. I should never have brought you." "We got the evidence," Emma interrupted, her voice shaking but determined. "We got what we needed. Now we just have to survive long enough to use it." Alessandro's phone rang. Rosa's number. He answered on speaker, not slowing his evasive driving. "Alessandro." Rosa's voice was terrified. "Paolo knows. He figured out I was fishing for information. He grabbed my phone, saw texts from Emma's number. He's calling Marco right now." Emma's blood turned to ice. "He knows about me? He's telling Marco that Alessandro's been in contact with someone named Emma Clarke. That you might be hiding him." Rosa was crying now. "I'm so sorry, I tried to." "Not your fault," Alessandro said firmly. "Rosa, get out of there. Go to my lawyer's office. You'll be safe there. What about you? We're going to finish this. Tonight." Alessandro's jaw was set, determined. "We're going to the FBI right now with everything we have. Marco won't be able to touch anyone by morning." They ended the call. Emma looked at Alessandro, seeing the same fear she felt reflected in his eyes. "He knows where I live. I know. He'll send people there. I know." Alessandro reached over, grabbed her hand. "Which is why we're not going back. We're going straight to the FBI field office, turning over everything, and putting ourselves in protective custody until Marco is arrested. And if they arrest you instead? Then at least you'll be safe. That's all that matters now." Emma wanted to argue, to insist that his safety mattered too, but there wasn't time. They were racing against Marco's men, against time, against the deadly consequences of being discovered. The Boston FBI field office was in Chelsea, a nondescript building that looked like any other office complex. Alessandro pulled up to the front, parking illegally, not caring. They gathered their evidence. The camera, the recordings from Rosa, the financial documents Vincent had provided through Alessandro's lawyer. "Ready?" Alessandro asked, his hand on her face, tender despite the urgency. "No," Emma admitted. "But let's do it anyway." They walked into the FBI office holding hands, carrying evidence that would destroy a criminal empire and possibly end Alessandro's freedom. The late-night skeleton crew looked up in surprise as they approached the reception desk. "My name is Alessandro Russo," he said clearly. "And I'm here to make a deal." The interrogation room was exactly like Emma had imagined from countless crime shows. Gray walls, metal table, uncomfortable chairs, and a mirror that was obviously one-way glass. She sat beside Alessandro, their hands still clasped together under the table, while FBI Special Agent Catherine Morrison reviewed their evidence. Morrison was in her late 40s, with sharp eyes that missed nothing and a no-nonsense demeanor that somehow managed to be both intimidating and reassuring. She'd listened to their story without interruption, taking notes, occasionally pausing the recordings to ask clarification questions. Now, 3 hours into their interview, she sat back and studied them both. "You understand," she said slowly, "that what you're offering is unprecedented. We don't typically grant immunity to organized crime figures, even ones claiming to be reforming their operations." "I understand," Alessandro said steadily. "But you also understand that what I'm offering you is unprecedented. Complete financial records of the Russo family operations going back 15 years. Testimony about connections to other families, to corrupt officials, to money laundering networks throughout New England. I can give you cases that will take years off your workload. In exchange for immunity from prosecution for myself, witness protection for my sister, for Vincent Caruso and his family, and for Emma." Alessandro's hand tightened on Emma's. "And I want Marco arrested tonight, before he can hurt anyone else." Morrison's expression was unreadable. "Your uncle has been a person of interest for this bureau for over a decade. But he's careful. We've never been able to get enough evidence for a warrant. I'm giving you that evidence now," Alessandro said. "The photographs of tonight's shipment show him personally directing illegal operations. Rosa's recording has his son discussing specific criminal activities. Vincent's financial records prove money laundering and tax evasion. That's enough for a warrant, enough for arrest, enough to hold him while you build your broader case." "And you?" Morrison turned her attention to Emma. "Ms. Clarke, you're not part of this life. Why risk yourself for him?" Emma met the agent's gaze without flinching. "Because he's a good man trying to do the right thing. Because the people Marco is threatening are innocent. And because sometimes you have to take risks for the people you love, even when it's terrifying." Something flickered in Morrison's expression. Maybe respect, maybe understanding. "You love him." "Yes," Emma said simply. "I do." Morrison stood, gathering their evidence materials. "Wait here. I need to consult with my superior and with the U.S. Attorney's Office. This kind of deal requires sign-off from multiple levels." She left, and Emma and Alessandro were alone in the interrogation room. The silence felt heavy, weighted with everything hanging in the balance. "Thank you," Alessandro said quietly, "for standing by me through this. For not running when you had every right to." "Where would I run to?" Emma asked, managing a shaky smile. "My heart's right here with you. Wouldn't make sense to leave it behind." He kissed her then, gentle and grateful and tinged with fear for what might come next. When they broke apart, Emma rested her forehead against his. "Whatever happens," she whispered, "we face it together." "Together," Alessandro agreed. Morrison returned 2 hours later with an older man she introduced as Assistant U.S. Attorney James Chen. They carried paperwork, so much paperwork that Emma's heart sank seeing the stack. "We have a deal," Chen said without preamble, sitting across from them. Contingent on several conditions. Alessandro straightened. What conditions? Full cooperation. Complete financial disclosure. Testimony in any trials that result from this investigation. And Chin paused. You remain under FBI supervision for the next 6 months. House arrest initially, then monitoring, until we're satisfied you're not a flight risk and that your testimony is genuine. Agreed, Alessandro said immediately. We'll want Ms. Clarke's testimony as well, regarding the events of the past 2 weeks. She'll also need to be in protective custody until we're certain Marco Russo and his associates no longer pose a threat. Emma nodded. Whatever you need. Then let's make this official. Chan pushed papers across the table. Sign here, here, and here. Initial every page. Read carefully. You're agreeing to the terms we've discussed and acknowledging the penalties for breaking this agreement. Alessandro read through every page meticulously, his years in business making him careful about contracts even under these circumstances. Emma read over his shoulder, her legal knowledge limited but her attention to detail serving them well. Finally, Alessandro signed. Then Emma, as a witness and participant in the protective custody arrangement. Congratulations, Morrison said, and she almost smiled. You're now officially working with the FBI, Mr. Russo. Try not to make me regret this. You won't, Alessandro promised. Morrison's almost smile became real. I hope not. Because I'm about to stake my career on this working out. She stood. Now, let's go arrest your uncle. The tactical team mobilization was impressive. Emma and Alessandro watched from Morrison's office as agents geared up, strategies were coordinated, warrants were finalized. Within an hour, multiple teams were moving simultaneously, one to Marco's home, one to the pier where tonight's shipment had occurred, one to known associate locations. Alessandro provided insider knowledge that made the raids more effective, which doors would be reinforced, where Marco kept weapons, which rooms had escape routes. His cooperation was absolute, burning bridges to his old life with every piece of information he shared. Rosa was brought in for her safety, reunited with Alessandro in an emotional scene that made Emma's eyes water. The siblings held each other tightly, both crying with relief and fear and the weight of everything they'd survived. You did so well, Alessandro told his sister. So brave. I'm so proud of you. Are we really free of him? Rosa asked. Really? Soon, Alessandro promised. Very soon. The arrests happened simultaneously at 3 a.m. Marco was taken from his bed, his protests and threats meaningless against federal warrants and overwhelming evidence. Paolo and 6 other key associates were also arrested. By dawn, the Russo criminal empire was effectively decapitated. Emma watched the sunrise through Morrison's office window, Alessandro beside her, both of them exhausted but unable to sleep. They'd survived. Against impossible odds, they'd actually won. What happens now? Emma asked quietly. Now we testify, build cases, help prosecute everyone involved in Marco's operations. Alessandro pulled her close. And we start figuring out what our lives look like after all this. Together. If you'll have me. I know the next few months will be difficult. The house arrest, the trials, the media attention when this all becomes public. I wouldn't blame you if... Emma silenced him with a kiss. Stop. I'm not going anywhere. We've come this far together. We're finishing this together too. The months that followed were indeed difficult. Alessandro lived under house arrest in a secure FBI facility, Emma visiting daily, both of them giving depositions and preparing for trials. The media frenzy was intense when the story broke. Mafia boss turns informant. Russo family empire crumbles. Former Don helps FBI dismantle organized crime. But through it all, they had each other. Emma worked remotely, editing manuscripts in the facility's common areas, while Alessandro spent hours in debriefings. Rosa visited when her hospital schedule allowed, slowly building a relationship with her brother freed from the shadow of their family's crimes. Vincent Caruso's testimony, combined with Alessandro's insider knowledge and the physical evidence from the pier, resulted in a domino effect of arrests and indictments. The corruption ran deeper than even the FBI had suspected. Judges, cops, city officials, all connected to Marco's operation. Marco himself refused to cooperate, confident his lawyers could get him off despite the evidence. He was wrong. The trial lasted 6 weeks, and the guilty verdict took the jury less than 4 hours to reach. Marco was sentenced to 45 years in federal prison with no possibility of parole. Alessandro testified at the trial, facing his uncle across the courtroom, speaking truth about years of violence and corruption. When it was over, when Marco was led away in chains, Alessandro felt the weight of his past finally begin to lift. 6 months to the day after they'd walked into the FBI office, Alessandro's house arrest ended. Morrison personally removed his ankle monitor, shaking his hand with genuine warmth. "You kept your word," she said. "Not many people in your position would have." "I had the right motivation," Alessandro replied, looking at Emma standing nearby. "Yes, you did." Morrison smiled at Emma. "Take care of him, Ms. Clarke. He's one of the good ones, even if he took a strange path to get there." "I plan to," Emma assured her. They returned to Emma's cottage that evening, the first time Alessandro had been there since the night they'd fled to the FBI. The place looked the same, felt the same, but everything was different now. "Home," Alessandro said, standing in the living room where Emma had first bandaged his wound. "I never thought I'd see this place again." "Welcome back," Emma said, wrapping her arms around his waist. This time as a free man. They talked during his house arrest about what came next. Alessandro was liquidating all the Russo family business assets, both legal and illegal. The legitimate businesses were being sold to ethical buyers. The illegal operations were being shut down completely, with help going to workers who wanted to transition to legal employment. With his share of the legitimate businesses, Alessandro was funding a scholarship program for underprivileged students interested in history education. He'd also enrolled in university classes himself, finally pursuing that dream of studying history. Emma had made her own changes. She'd taken on fewer editing clients, wanting time to focus on her own writing. The book she was working on, a memoir about falling in love with a stranger in a storm and the adventure that followed, was cathartic and terrifying in equal measure. But tonight, their first night of true freedom, they didn't want to talk about the future or the past. They just wanted to be together, to celebrate survival, to honor the love that had saved them both. They made dinner together, pasta, of course, Alessandro teaching Emma his grandmother's technique for the sauce while she laughed at his perfectionism about water temperature. They ate on her small porch, watching the sun set over the ocean, the sound of waves a peaceful soundtrack. "I have something for you," Alessandro said when dinner was finished, pulling a small box from his pocket. Emma's heart skipped. "Alessandro, I know we've only known each other for 7 months. I know we've spent most of that time dealing with trials and testimony and legal proceedings. But I meant what I said that night before we went to the FBI." He opened the box, revealing a simple platinum band set with a single emerald, the color of Emma's eyes. "I want to spend my life with you. I want to build something real and good and lasting. Marry me, Emma Clarke. Please." Emma's vision blurred with tears. She'd known this was coming, had been expecting it, wanting it, but the reality still took her breath away. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, of course, yes." He slipped the ring on her finger, and it fit perfectly. He'd somehow figured out her size without her knowing. Then he was kissing her, and she was kissing him back, and they were both laughing and crying and holding each other like they'd never let go. That night, In Emma's bed, where they'd shared so many stolen moments of peace during the chaos, they made love with new freedom and joy. No danger hanging over them, no fear of separation, no uncertainty about tomorrow. Just two people who'd found each other in a storm and built something beautiful from that chance meeting. They were married 3 months later in a small ceremony at Emma's cottage. Rosa served as maid of honor, wearing a smile that hadn't left her face since the ceremony began. Alessandro's lawyer Marco served as best man, having become a close friend through the trials and their aftermath. Agent Morrison attended, as did Vincent Caruso and his family, all of them witnesses to this new chapter, this fresh start. The guest list was small, just 20 people, but every person there had played a role in their story, had helped them survive and build toward this moment. Emma wore a simple white dress, elegant and understated, with wildflowers in her hair. Alessandro wore a charcoal suit that made his eyes look almost gray-silver in the afternoon light. They exchanged vows they'd written themselves, promising partnership and honesty, adventure and peace, love through all the challenges yet to come. When the officiant pronounced them married, Alessandro kissed Emma like she was precious and fragile and strong all at once. The small gathering applauded, and Emma felt joy so profound it seemed impossible that 7 months ago she'd been alone in this cottage, thinking her life would never change. The reception was held in Emma's garden, which they'd expanded and improved over recent months. String lights hung between the trees, a small band played Italian folk songs mixed with American classics, and the food was a blend of Emma's New England favorites and Alessandro's family recipes. Rosa gave a toast that made everyone laugh and cry. When Alessandro called me from Emma's cottage months ago, I thought he was crazy for trusting a stranger. But Emma isn't a stranger, she's family. She saw past my brother's dangerous exterior to the good man underneath. She risked everything to help him, to save him, to love him. And in doing so, she saved all of us. Rosa raised her glass. To Emma and Alessandro, may your love be as fierce as the storm that brought you together, and as enduring as the peace you've found. Alessandro's toast to Emma was simpler but no less moving. You opened your door to a bleeding stranger on the worst night of his life and gave him a reason to live, to fight, to hope. Everything good in my life started with you saying yes when you should have said no. I love you, Emma Russo. Always have, always will. They danced as the sun set, Alessandro holding Emma close, swaying to music under the stars. Around them, their small but meaningful community celebrated, everyone connected by the unlikely story of survival and second chances that had brought them all together. Happy, Alessandro murmured against Emma's hair. Impossibly, Emma replied. Sometimes I still can't believe this is real. That we made it here. Believe it. We earned this happiness. They had. Through danger and fear and impossible odds, they'd fought for this future. And now it was theirs. The months following the wedding brought new rhythms and routines. Alessandro excelled in his university courses, his professors impressed by his passion for history and his unique perspectives on power, family, and social structures. He talked about maybe pursuing a master's degree, about eventually teaching at the high school or college level. Emma finished her memoir, the writing process therapeutic and clarifying. When it was published a year after their wedding, it became an unexpected bestseller. Readers connected with the honest portrayal of fear and love, the complexity of Alessandro's character, the reality that people can change if given the chance. Rosa completed her residency and accepted a position at a children's hospital in Portland, Maine, close enough to visit regularly but far enough to maintain her independence. She was dating a pediatric surgeon she'd met during her fellowship, a kind man who knew nothing about the Russo family history and saw Rosa only as a brilliant, compassionate doctor. The remaining Russo family members who hadn't been implicated in Marco's criminal activities gradually rebuilt their lives. Some maintained distance from Alessandro, unable to forgive his cooperation with the FBI. Others, particularly younger cousins who'd been trying to escape the family legacy, reached out with gratitude and support. Alessandro started a foundation, the Rosa Russo Educational Fund, named for his grandmother, that provided scholarships and support for students from organized crime families who wanted to pursue legitimate careers and education. The foundation also offered counseling and job placement assistance, recognizing that leaving a criminal family required practical support, not just desire to change. Emma continued editing, but more selectively now, taking on projects that interested her rather than just paid the bills. She also started teaching writing workshops for women in recovery, sharing her skills while connecting with others who understood the challenge of rebuilding a life. They talked about children someday, about maybe adopting or fostering kids who needed stable homes and second chances. But for now, they were content building their life together, learning to be married, figuring out the mundane challenges of shared space and merged finances, and whose turn it was to do the dishes. 2 years after they married, Emma and Alessandro took their first real vacation, to Sicily, to visit the village where Alessandro's grandmother had been born. They walked the narrow streets she'd once walked, ate at the family restaurant his great-uncle still operated, and visited the small church where generations of Russos had been baptized and married. Alessandro stood in that church, looking at the faded frescoes and worn wooden pews, and felt something shift inside him. This was his heritage too, not just crime and violence, but centuries of family, of people who'd worked hard and loved deeply and built lives of meaning. "Thank you," he said to Emma that evening as they watched the sunset from their hotel balcony, the Mediterranean stretching endlessly before them. "For what?" "For helping me find my way back to this. To understanding that my family history is more than just the criminal enterprise. That there's good mixed in with the bad, and I get to choose which legacy to carry forward." Emma leaned against him, comfortable and content. "You were always going to find your way, Alessandro. You just needed someone to believe in you while you did." "I needed you," he corrected. "Specifically you. No one else could have done what you did. Then I guess it's lucky I opened my door that night. The luckiest thing that ever happened to me." They returned from Sicily with renewed purpose and a decision. They were ready to start the family they'd been dreaming about. The adoption process was lengthy and complex, Alessandro's past requiring extra scrutiny and documentation. But his cooperation with the FBI, his clean record since then, and the life he'd built all worked in their favor. 18 months later, they brought home Sophia, a 7-year-old girl who'd been bounced between foster homes since her mother's death and her father's incarceration. She was wary and withdrawn, testing boundaries, expecting rejection. Emma and Alessandro met her wariness with patient love. They didn't push, didn't demand, just offered consistency and safety and the promise that this home was permanent. Slowly, Sophia began to bloom. Her rare smiles became more frequent. She started bringing them drawings from school. She asked if it was okay to call them Mom and Dad. The day she did, Emma cried happy tears while Alessandro held them both, his own eyes suspiciously bright. 6 months after Sophia came home, they got a call about her younger brother Marco. Yes, coincidentally bearing Alessandro's uncle's name, who'd been in a different placement but was now available for adoption. Did they want to keep the siblings together? They didn't even have to discuss it. Marco, age 4, joined their family 2 months later. He was easier than Sophia, too young to remember much about his early life, eager for affection and attention. He attached to Alessandro immediately, following him everywhere, calling him Papa within a week. Their cottage became a home filled with children's laughter, homework spread across the kitchen table, bedtime stories, and the comfortable chaos of family life. Emma scaled back her work even further, wanting to be present for these crucial early years. Alessandro adjusted his class schedule so he'd be home when the kids got off the school bus. Rosa visited often, Sophia and Marco adoring their Aunt Rosa, who brought presents and told funny stories about their papa when he was young. The kids knew their family history, an age-appropriate version, understanding that their parents had both overcome difficult pasts to build something better. On storm nights, when rain lashed the cottage windows and thunder rolled across the ocean, Sophia sometimes got scared. Alessandro would sit with her, holding her close, and tell her the story of how a storm had brought their family together. The storm was scary, he'd say, but it brought me to Mama. And Mama helped me become the person I needed to be. And being that person allowed me to become your papa. So storms can be frightening, but they can also bring beautiful changes. Sophia would nestle closer, her fear easing. I'm glad the storm happened, she'd say. Otherwise we wouldn't be a family. Neither am I, princess. Neither am I. Chapter 10. Full Circle, Peace in the Storm, 30 minutes. 5 years after that fateful October storm, Emma stood in her expanded cottage, now with an added wing for the children's bedrooms, and reflected on how completely her life had transformed. The quiet, isolated existence she'd once cultivated seemed like it belonged to a different person entirely. The kitchen that had once seen just her solitary meals now rang with family dinner conversations, Sophia chattering about her middle school drama club while Marco described an elaborate fort he was building with his best friend. Alessandro moved between them with comfortable ease, adding pasta to plates, refilling water glasses, his presence a steady anchor in the cheerful chaos. Mama, can Jessie sleep over this Friday? Sophia asked, already anticipating the answer. If her parents say yes, then yes, Emma replied, smiling at her daughter's excitement. Sophia had come so far from the withdrawn child they'd first brought home. Now she was confident, social, secure in their love. Papa, will you help me with my fort tomorrow? Marco tugged on Alessandro's sleeve. We need someone tall to reach the high parts. After my morning class, Alessandro promised, ruffling his son's hair. But then I'm all yours, builder man. After dinner, after homework was checked and baths were supervised and stories were read, Emma and Alessandro finally had their quiet time. They sat on the porch, expanded now with a swing that creaked gently as they moved, watching the ocean under a clear sky studded with stars. Do you ever miss it? Emma asked, though she knew the answer. The excitement, the danger, even the power you once had? Alessandro didn't even hesitate. Never. Not once. He pulled her closer, his arm around her shoulders. I don't miss lying awake worrying about who might betray me, or having to make decisions that hurt people, or looking over my shoulder constantly. I don't miss the weight of being someone I hated. You were never someone to hate, Emma protested gently. I was someone I didn't like very much, Alessandro clarified. Someone who'd lost himself trying to be what others expected. This life with you, with our children, teaching history to teenagers who think it's boring until I show them it's not. This is who I was meant to be. Emma leaned into him, comfortable and content. The kids at school know who you were, you know. Some of their parents talked. I know. And I'm not ashamed of it anymore. Alessandro's voice was calm, assured. I tell my students the truth when they ask, that I made mistakes, that I was part of something wrong, but that I chose to change. That it's never too late to become someone better. They love you for it. Rosa told me some of your students came to the hospital asking to interview you for a project on redemption and second chances. 3 of them, yes. Smart kids. Asked hard questions. Alessandro smiled. One girl told me her uncle was in prison and she'd been ashamed of her family. Talking to me helped her understand that your family's choices don't have to define you. You're making a difference, Emma said. Not just with our kids, but with so many others. We're making a difference, Alessandro corrected. Your memoir helped countless people understand that loving someone with a complicated past doesn't make you foolish. It makes you brave. Your workshops help women rebuild their lives. We're a team, Emma. Everything good we do together. They sat in comfortable silence, the swing creaking, the ocean providing its eternal soundtrack. Emma thought about that October night 5 years ago, about the split-second decision to open her door to a bleeding stranger. How easily she could have chosen differently. How completely that single choice had altered the trajectory of her entire life. "I'm grateful for the storm," she said softly. Alessandro knew exactly what she meant. "So am I. Every day." Inside the cottage, they could hear Sophia reading to Marco in his bedroom, an evening ritual they'd established on their own, the older sister looking out for her little brother. The sound filled Emma with warmth, with gratitude, with joy so profound it sometimes overwhelmed her. This was what she'd been running from when she'd fled to this isolated cottage. Not danger or drama, but connection. The risk of loving people and potentially losing them. The vulnerability of opening her heart when it had already been broken. The terrifying possibility of caring so much that loss could destroy her. But Alessandro had taught her something crucial. That love was worth the risk. That building connections, despite their fragility, was what made life meaningful. That choosing courage over safety was how you truly lived rather than just survived. "Come on," Alessandro said, standing and pulling her up with him. "Let's check on our kids and then get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be busy." "Tomorrow's always busy," Emma laughed. "That's life with children. Wouldn't have it any other way." They tucked in the kids together, Sophia already nearly asleep with her book still in her hands, Marco sprawled across his bed with stuffed animals crowded around him. Emma adjusted Sophia's blanket while Alessandro carefully removed the book and turned off her reading light. In Marco's room, they straightened his sprawled limbs and arranged his stuffed animals more comfortably. "Love you, Mama. Love you, Papa," Marco mumbled, half asleep. "We love you too, Builderman," Alessandro whispered. In their own bedroom, Emma and Alessandro went through the familiar routine of preparing for bed. No longer the careful distance of those early days in this cottage, but the comfortable intimacy of partners who knew each other's rhythms and habits perfectly. "I talked to Rosa today," Alessandro said as they settled under the covers. "She's engaged. Daniel proposed last night." "That's wonderful." Emma turned to face him, smiling. "Did she say yes?" "Obviously. She called me at 6 in the morning, crying happy tears." Alessandro's expression was tender. "She wants to have the wedding here, at our cottage. Says this is where our family really began, where everything changed for the better." "I'd love that," Emma said, meaning it. "This place has good memories. It deserves to host more happy occasions." She also asked if we'd be okay with her using our story as inspiration for her wedding vows. Something about building a life with someone even when it seems impossible. "What did you say?" "I said our story belongs to all of us now. That if it helps her and Daniel build their own happiness, she has our blessing to use it however she wants." Alessandro pulled Emma closer. "We've been so lucky, Emma. Against all odds, against all logic, we built this." "We built this together," Emma corrected. "You couldn't have done it alone, and neither could I. That's what makes it special." They lay in the darkness, holding each other, listening to the familiar sounds of their home settling for the night. Outside, the wind was picking up, clouds moving in from the ocean. Emma could smell rain coming, feel the change in air pressure that preceded a storm. "Storm's coming," she murmured. "Let it come," Alessandro replied peacefully. "We're safe here. Together." Emma drifted off to sleep in her husband's arms, secure in their home, their family sleeping down the hall, and felt only gratitude. For storms that brought change. For the courage to open doors. For second chances and new beginnings. For love that transformed everything. The storm broke around midnight, rain drumming on the roof, wind rattling the windows. But inside the cottage, Emma and Alessandro slept peacefully, their children safe in their beds, their home a shelter against any tempest. 5 years ago, Emma had opened her door to a stranger in a storm and changed her life forever. She'd been terrified but brave, uncertain but determined, and that single act of compassion had brought her everything she'd been too afraid to wish for. Now, lying safe in the eye of this new storm, Emma smiled in her sleep. She'd learned that sometimes the most dangerous storms brought the most beautiful transformations. That opening your door, and your heart, to unexpected possibilities was how magic happened. And that love, when you were brave enough to let it in, could weather any storm and emerge stronger on the other side. 10 years later. The cottage by the sea had changed again in the decade since that October storm had brought Alessandro to Emma's door. The additions and renovations reflected a growing family, a proper office for Alessandro's growing collection of history books, a music room where Sofia practiced the piano, a larger garage that housed Marco's bicycles and building projects. But the heart of the home remained the same, the kitchen where they still shared meals and conversations, the living room where Alessandro had first collapsed bleeding and desperate, and the porch where they sat every evening watching the ocean. Emma was 43 now, her hair showing the first hints of silver that Alessandro said made her look distinguished. Alessandro was 47, laugh lines around his eyes from years of genuine happiness, his once dangerous edge softened by peace and purpose. Sofia was 17, preparing for college applications, hoping to study theater and education. She'd chosen to keep her birth name but added Russo to it, proud to be part of this family. She'd written her college essay about adoption and second chances, about how love could heal wounds that seemed unhealable. Marco was 14, tall and gangly, passionate about architecture and environmental science. He wanted to design sustainable buildings, to create structures that would last for generations while protecting the planet. Alessandro helped him with the math and physics required for his dream, proud of this thoughtful, creative boy they'd raised. Rosa had 2 children of her own now, both daughters, and lived just 30 minutes away. She and Daniel had built a beautiful marriage, grounded in friendship and mutual respect. She still practiced pediatric medicine, still made a difference in young lives every day, and she'd never forgotten that her freedom to choose this life came because her brother had been brave enough to change. The foundation Alessandro had started flourished, helping dozens of young people escape organized crime backgrounds each year. He still taught history at the local high school, beloved by students for his ability to make the past feel relevant and exciting. He'd published a textbook on the intersection of organized crime and American history, praised for its unflinching honesty and scholarly rigor. Emma's writing career had expanded beyond that first memoir. She'd written 3 more books, a novel about second chances, a collection of essays about building families from broken pieces, and a guide for partners of people working to leave criminal organizations. She still taught workshops, still edited selectively, still found meaning in helping others tell their stories. On the 10th anniversary of the storm that had brought them together, Alessandro planned a surprise. He'd been secretive for weeks, making mysterious phone calls, disappearing for errands that he refused to explain. Emma played along, curious but trusting, knowing whatever he was planning would be worth the mystery. The night arrived stormy, appropriately enough, not as violent as that October night a decade ago, but rain and wind that made the cottage feel like a ship at sea. Alessandro had sent the kids to Rosa's for the night, insisting he and Emma needed the house to themselves. "Close your eyes," he instructed as he led her to the living room. "No peeking." Emma complied, letting him guide her, smiling at his barely contained excitement. When he told her to open her eyes, she gasped. The room had been transformed. Candles everywhere, safe LED ones, given their track record with children and fire hazards, creating warm light that danced across the walls. Rose petals scattered on the floor in a path leading to the couch where he'd first collapsed. And on that couch, a large photo album Emma had never seen before. "What is this?" she asked, moving toward it. 10 years, Alessandro said softly. "A decade since you saved my life. I wanted to show you what that meant. What you made possible by being brave enough to open your door." Emma opened the album with trembling hands. The first page showed a photo of them on their wedding day, young and hopeful and so in love. The next pages chronicled their life together, bringing Sofia home, adding Marco to their family, holidays and birthdays and ordinary moments made extraordinary by being together. But it was the last section that made Emma's eyes fill with tears. Photos of people she didn't know, accompanied by handwritten notes. "These are the students from my classes who changed their lives after hearing our story," Alessandro explained, sitting beside her. "Young people who were headed toward the same path I was on, who chose differently because they saw that change was possible." Emma read the notes, from a boy who'd been recruited by a gang but chose college instead, from a girl whose father was in prison but who was breaking the cycle, from a young man who'd been Alessandro's student 5 years ago and was now studying law to become a prosecutor. "And these," Alessandro turned to another section, "are from the foundation. Families we've helped. Kids who got scholarships, who found legitimate work, who built new lives." More photos, more notes, more lives transformed. Emma saw the ripple effect of that single decision she'd made a decade ago, how opening her door to one bleeding stranger had somehow touched dozens, maybe hundreds of lives. "You did this," Alessandro said, his voice thick with emotion. "Not just for me, but for all of them. Every person we helped, every life we changed, it all started because you chose compassion over fear." Emma was crying now, overwhelmed by the evidence of good that had come from those terrible, dangerous months a decade ago. "We did this," she corrected, "just as he always did. Together." Alessandro pulled out a small box. Not a ring this time, but something else. Inside was a compass, beautifully crafted, with an inscription on the back. "True north isn't a direction, it's a person. You are mine." "Hey. I was lost when I came to your door," Alessandro said. "Bleeding out from more than just the bullet wound. Lost morally, spiritually, unable to see a way forward. You became my true north, Emma. The fixed point I could navigate by, the thing that kept me oriented toward good when everything else was chaos." Emma held the compass, feeling its weight, understanding its meaning. "You were my true north too," she said. "I was so lost before you, Alessandro. Hiding from life, too scared to connect with anyone, just existing rather than living. You reminded me that being alive means taking risks, opening yourself up, choosing courage even when it terrifies you." They held each other as the storm raged outside, exactly as they had 10 years ago, but everything was different now. Then they'd been strangers bound by necessity and danger. Now they were partners who'd built a life of meaning and purpose, who'd raised children and helped communities, who'd proven that people could change if given the chance and the support. "I have one more thing to show you," Alessandro said, pulling out his phone. "This came today. I wanted to wait until tonight to share it." He opened an email and handed her the phone. Emma read, her eyes widening. It was from the governor of Massachusetts, informing Alessandro that he was being nominated for a state award recognizing his work with at-risk youth and his contributions to reducing organized crime recruitment. The ceremony would be in 6 months, and his family was invited. "Alessandro," Emma breathed. "This is incredible. It's surreal," he admitted. 10 years ago, I was the criminal they were trying to arrest. Now they want to give me an award. Sometimes I can't believe this is real." "Believe it," Emma said firmly. "You earned this. Every single day for 10 years, you chose to be better, to do better, to help others. This recognition is deserved. We'll go together," Alessandro said. "All of us, you, me, the kids, Rosa's family. Everyone who helped make this transformation possible should be there to celebrate it." Emma smiled through her tears. "Sophia will be impossible about shopping for a dress. Marco will try to wear his sneakers with his suit. Rosa will cry happy tears through the entire ceremony. And I'll stand there thinking about the moment you opened your door to a bleeding stranger and started all of this." They kissed as thunder rolled overhead, as rain streamed down the windows, as the storm reached its peak intensity. It was a kiss that held a decade of love and struggle and triumph, Of two people who'd found each other in the worst possible circumstances and built something beautiful from that darkness. Later, lying in bed with the storm still raging, Emma reflected on the unpredictability of life. How you could make careful plans and build careful walls and think you had everything figured out, and then a storm could bring a stranger to your door and change everything. She thought about the nurse she'd been before, afraid to care too much, running from connection. The solitary editor in her cottage, safe but half alive. The woman who'd opened her door despite every logical reason not to, who'd chosen compassion over caution. That woman had been braver than she knew. And that choice had led to everything good in Emma's life now. Alessandro, Sophia, Marco, the work they did helping others, the family they'd built from nothing, the love that sustained them through every challenge. "Thank you," Emma whispered into the darkness. "For what?" Alessandro murmured, already half asleep. "For crashing into my oak tree. For choosing my door out of all the doors you could have knocked on. For being worth saving." Alessandro pulled her closer, his arms tight and warm and safe. "Thank you for saving me. For loving me. For building this life with me. Always," Emma promised. "Through every storm." "Through every storm," Alessandro agreed. Outside, the wind howled and the rain fell and the ocean crashed against the cliffs. But inside their cottage, their home, their sanctuary, the place where their story began, Emma and Alessandro slept peacefully, secure in their love and the life they'd built together. 10 years ago, a storm had brought them together. Tonight, another storm reminded them how far they'd come, how much they'd survived, and how strong their love had proven to be. And as the storm gradually subsided, moving on to other shores, Emma smiled in her sleep, dreaming of sunshine and of all the bright tomorrows still to come.